Welcome everybody to my first episode of my podcast called Tips from My Garage. I'm very excited to actually get started on this journey because it has been something that I have been wanting to do for quite some time. In fact, I had planned to do the podcast maybe 2 or 3 years ago before I started my business. I had prepared, I had ran through in my head what I wanted to talk about, the things I wanted the topics I wanted to go into detail and depth about, and the reason and the purpose for my podcast. And for those of you who know me, know that I have gone through an addiction recovery journey of my own. And that podcast was really going to be based around the addiction recovery journey. Mine specifically because it's my story. And when I first decided to start a business, I wanted to highlight the different stages of the recovery journey that I went through myself. And then that's actually how I created my business. I looked introspectively at the different time frames and the different stages that I went through on my recovery journey, and was able to put into words the different strategies and the different tools that I use to be able to go through those or manage those stages. For my business, I needed to put those strategies and tools down on paper and then articulate it in a way that people could understand it. And not only could that they could clearly understand it, but they would know how to simply apply those strategies into their lives. And so that's how my business came about. But prior prior to starting my business, I was going to do a podcast. And that was what my podcast was going to be based on, was just the different stages of my journey, the different stages of my recovery that I went through. And I thought, I had spent, let's say, 2 years prior to thinking about doing a podcast. I spent 2 years putting out content uh, on my different social platforms through Facebook and Instagram, and also YouTube. And together with my sister, I was able to also put together a blog spot. So, pardon me, there were 2 years that I went through where every week I put up a different video. And the way that I had uh, strategized the way that I put that together was, I didn't want to just put content out there, just kind of winging it and not really having a structure to it. When I decided that I wanted to start putting content out on my different social platforms, I was also thinking about my recovery journey and the different steps that I went through on my recovery journey. And so what I had done is I had actually, okay, this is going to sound like it's going to jump all over the place, but when I had gone through my recovery journey and I came out on the other end, what I wanted to do was what what I decided to do was to write a book about it. And I thought initially what I was going to do is write a book on my story, and and that would be the my story, putting my story out there, and then maybe people that are going through the same struggles of addiction recovery would go through, would pick up the book and learn about the different ways that I had overcome some of the challenges that I was going through, and then that would be able to help them to be able um, to to get over their own struggles and addictions or whatever bad habits they may have been struggling with. And when I but when I was thinking about writing a book, I actually had started writing a book, and it was kind of like a compilation of memoirs, or like a what, just a, I was just going to write my story. To be honest, I've actually written a book prior to, I think when I was around 29 years old. I don't know how many years ago that would have been. Um, but I titled it Serving Two Masters. And that book was actually the first book that I've written. It was never published. I actually still have the manuscript to it, but it was basically a book about my struggles between being brought up the right way and trying to do the right thing, and then having my own struggles and my own weaknesses, and being brought up in a religious background with a huge spiritual background, and then going completely opposite to that life, and doing everything that I had learned my whole life that I shouldn't do, and did completely the opposite of all of that. And that was the why I titled it Serving Two Masters, because it was just, you know, the two sides of me, having learned my whole life to do the right thing, and then gone and done the wrong thing. And then that struggle, that back and forth seesaw of trying to do the right thing and then falling back onto the wrong track, and then try to do the right thing and then falling onto the wrong track. And then so I that book was raw. um, I I put a lot of feeling into that book, um, and to be honest, it was cathartic for me. It was almost like having a pen, taking a pen like this one, and then the moment I put it to paper, it was like it drained the emotion out of me, because I put so much emotion into it, that it kind of just it came out of me. And by the time I was finished writing that book, and because it was so raw and I felt like I was being so vulnerable, you know, um, I thought, it actually felt like I had a weight lifted off of me, like I had, um, like I had done something, like I had, it was a process. I literally wrote that out by hand. I still have the manuscripts that somewhere in all my writings, but I spent so much time on that book. So that was actually the first book that I wrote, and then the second book I was gonna write was after I had gone through my journey, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna actually show the light on the other side of this. So this other book was me being kind of confused about where I was going in life. It was kind of like, I know what the right thing is to do, but I keep doing the wrong thing. And then this next stage, or this next chapter of my life, was going to be, okay, this story is going to start in that dark place, but it's going to have a happy ending. and I'm going to show that side. So then maybe I could have both the books, and then that would be able to show people like, okay, this was him in a dark, confused state, and then this is him getting his act together and going in the right direction. And so that's what I was doing. I was writing a book, and then all of a sudden, I well, not all of a sudden. What I enjoyed doing, and what I still enjoy doing, is going to conferences where you can learn about, uh, different um, different entrepreneurs and different businesses and different ways to get ahead in life. I think the name of the company was called Success Resources. Shout out to those guys for putting on those conferences every year. But what they did is they just brought in entrepreneurs from every walk of life, from all around the world, and you got big names like Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, David Goggins, Robert Kiyosaki, all of these guys that I really admired. And so I would go to these every year, and what they would do is they would come and speak to us about their stories, about how they got in front and became entrepreneurs and successes, and that was very motivating and inspiring to me. And there was another guy there that was he had a business where he helped people to write books, and not just write books but turn the books into multiple streams of income. And shucks, I can't off the top of my head. I can't remember his name, but I think the name of his publishing book is called Black Books. I'm not sure. Uh, I'll give a shout out to this guy the next time. When I do another episode. But um, this guy really struck a chord with me when he was up on stage and he was talking about writing books. He talked about, look, I have this program. I can help you to structure and to write a book, and then you can, and then you can make money off of it. And I thought, well, for me, if I'm going to write a book, I want to make money on it. That's one way that I could do it. This is just kind of right up my alley, and I really want to, I really want to do this program to see if I can, write a book and then make some money off of it and try to be smart about doing it. And so I signed up to his program, and then during his program, he talked about people that were writing, their own life stories, and he said, this you it may not be the right time for you to write an autobiography. People don't know who you are. You haven't quite earned the right to have people want to look at something like that for you. But what you can do is write, you can look at the story of the life that you have, and then you can come up with a book. And I'm going to show you how to write a how-to book. And the how-to book is basically going to be how you can help somebody else to overcome the challenges they're going through in their life, just like the way that you were able to overcome the struggles that you went through in your life. And I thought, wow, that sounds pretty, that sounded very nice to me. That sounded really, really like a great idea. I thought, okay, this is great. I think what I really want to do, because ultimately what I want to do is to help people to get from their current state, whatever that may be, that struggling state that they're in, to a higher plane, or a place where they have hope and certainty and direction and clarity. That's what I want to do, is I want to help people to get there. And so that's what I that's what I did. I put together a structure, a how-to book. And so the how-to book then became me asking myself a series of questions, just like another desperate addict would be asking an expert and wanting to get answers for. And then once I was able to put together a list of those questions that a desperate, addict would have for an expert, and this is somebody that's struggling and wanting to overcome the challenges they're facing and don't know how to do it. So what I did is I listed all those questions and I answered all of them. And then that's how my book was written. And so initially my book was called Conquer Your Addictions. Today I have renamed, well, not today, I've renamed it before and put it out onto Amazon, but I've called it instead um, Q&A between two addicts, because the format, even though it was like a question format, um, well, it is a question. It isn't a question format. It is questions that needed to be answered, and the answers were the solution to the problem. I That's the reason why I decided to call it Q&A between two addicts, because it's really like it's really like one conversation between, and I called it between two addicts because I'm a recovering addict and that person might be the addict, and then so we're having that conversation and I'm still answering that question for them, but I've been where they have been and I've gone from that place to this place, but we can have that conversation. And so, but initially I had called it Conquer Your Addictions. It's really quite a I don't know. I mean, if you go onto Amazon and you look up Conquer Your Addictions, you're going to find 5 million things, and, at the time I thought, that this is so great. My actual Facebook page was called Conquer Your Addictions. And I really like the title because it just is saying exactly what I'm trying to help people to do. Um, and so that was how I wrote my book. But my book was written, so the questions that I asked it were kind of like, it had a a sequential order, or like it had an order that the sequence was basically from somebody asking the questions at rock bottom and then moving up through the different stages and the different questions that they would have then. So then what it allowed me to do is to go through my recovery journey and the different stages, and to actually highlight the different stages so that people could see that, and then show the strategies and the tools that I used in those particular stages, or show the tools and the strategies that I should have used. Had I had known them, I would have been able to use them then. But because I was shooting in the dark back then, I did a lot of trial and error. That was the other reason that I wrote the book, because I wanted to show people how to do it, but not just how to do it, but also how to what not to do because of the mistakes that I made. So I wanted to show them the things that I did wrong so that they could see how I had corrected that over time and then got over it, but how they can avoid doing it themselves when they go through the recovery journey. And so it's my belief that if they can avoid all of those pitfalls and obstacles that I had gone through, that recovery journey is going to be a much smoother process. Not that it's going to be more, pardon me, easier to do, because it's not going to be easy to do, but it's going to be, it'll be more, supported. It'll be more streamlined. It won't be so messy. Um, it will be full of resources, tools, and strategies that can be used in the different stages, that will help them to be able to get through these stages much quicker than than trying to shoot in the dark like what I was doing before. So, having said all of that about the book situation, uh, I got the book. The book is now an ebook on Amazon called quite a Q&A between two addicts. So once I got the book part sorted, which back in those days was called Conquer Your Addictions, my next step was going to do a podcast. Um, but that came quickly. So what I had done is I went and looked for a mentor, and there was somebody that I was introduced to who was a public speaker, who was a published author. And I thought that that was the direction that I needed to go because I wanted to do more public speaking. I was now an author. I'm trying to get my book out there and published at that time, um, which I eventually was able to get done. But I wanted to have somebody to be able to help me or to walk me through the next stages, that I thought that I needed to go through. And the best place for me to look for well, the best place for me to look for help would be from somebody who's actually already been there and done that. And so I went and spoke to this guy. Um, his name is Baron Grant, and he actually told me about. Well, I actually took him out to lunch, and I said, "Look, I'm interested to know about your what happened, well, how you got to where you are." And I told him, I actually I bought his book and I read it. I really enjoyed it. And when I caught up with him, I told him, look, I really loved your book. I know that you're a public speaker. I want to go down that route. Can you, I want to take you out to lunch. So I took him out to lunch, and I was, trying to pick his brain because I wanted to know what would be the best thing for me to do. And he is the person who actually gave me the advice to go in a different direction and just to start a business rather than to go into podcasting, because he actually was also had his own podcast. He was a public speaker, a published author, but he also had his own business, which I wasn't aware of, helping people to lose weight. And and so he was like, look, let me show you a different way to approach this. So what you should do is start a business and then put all of that other stuff on hold for now, because if you start a business you can start making money on it. And so that was the reason why I got my business started, and I got my business up and running, as a result of meeting with Baron. So shout out to Baron, because he's the one that got me started into all of this. Um, and I started to get clients and all of that. But now that my business is up and I'm working on that, that's a slow grind for me, at the moment. But I feel like now is the right time for me to jump into the podcast space, and and so I guess that was a long-winded way of me saying that's why I'm now back into this place, and now I'm gonna now I want to do my podcast. I still want to include those things that I had initially wanted to do, like go through the different stages and the different steps that I went through. But I feel like today I have more to say, than I ever have before, and I feel like I need a platform, and this would be the best kind of a platform for me to be able to get my voice out and to say the things that are on my heart and say the things that I want to say. And the hope is that it's going to be helpful to those that will be listening and that are watching, that they will get something out of it, that it will make their days better, that it will be thought provoking, that it will help them to be better people, that it will help them to overcome the addictions and the different things that they have actually been through. Um, but and so I this podcast isn't called Conquer Your Addictions podcast, and it's although we're going to be talking about addictions, I want this to be kind of to have a broader range of subjects and topics that I can talk about. And so the name of this podcast is Tips from My Garage. I don't know if it's gonna stick. That's what it is right now. I feel like what I'm gonna do is give some tips, and I'm actually in my garage, and this is literally being this video is being shot in my garage. It's cars are driving by, the kids are screaming in the house. It's cold. That's why I've got a jacket on. It's got everything in a garage. Um, that you would normally find in a garage. I've got some posters up here, as you can see. I got Bruce Lee and I got Tupac. These are two of my idols. I grew up watching Bruce Lee and wanting to be like Bruce Lee. And Tupac. When I left the world of when I left the bubble that I was in when I was a young teenager, and I went to live that street life. Tupac is who I felt the most connected to out of all the hip hop artists in the world at that particular time, and so I felt very connected to him. I still feel very connected and very strongly about him and his even his words. He was so young when he passed this world. But I hung on every lyric that he spoke, and I tried to live that life as close to that lifestyle as I possibly could. Well, at least I thought that I was. And that's why he's on my wall as well. But yeah, it's just a garage. Um, and I want to give some spit some knowledge, and some wisdom, and hopefully you guys out there will be able to gain something from it. Um, what else can I say right now? This has been a long time coming, and like I said, I really wanted to be able to speak my mind um, on various different subjects. So I did put a list of subjects that I wanted to cover that I will get to and cover throughout this new journey, this podcast journey that I'm going through. And the obvious ones there will be addiction, the recovery process, habits, routine, personal development, spirituality, including religion, holy scripture, politics, the state of the world we're in, principles, and basically anything else I feel like I want to talk about. Um, and I just want to leave you on this last note. I wanted to quickly, share a couple of thoughts on what I think the the um, the nature of true happiness is. And there's so many different definitions of what happiness is, and some people would believe that happiness is somewhere external, which is somewhere outside of where they are, and others will believe that happiness is something that happens from within. And I'm also one of those that believes that happiness is something that comes from within, and that is something that is not external. So, for example, this is if 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 you're having a bad day, and or your life is crap, or the whole world, like if you look at the state of the world as it is right now, um, you can easily fall into a space where you're fearful and you're scared, and you can't be happy because there's so much there's so much anxiety and anxiousness and instability and a lot of chaotic things that are happening in this world right now. And so that could make you unhappy. Some people would be unhappy just because of the state of the world that it's in now. um, Whereas what I understand to know about happiness is that happiness is something that your whole world could crumble around you, but because of the state that you're in, is a if it's a state of contentment and you're doing things the right way, and um, there's a level of personal responsibility and accountability, and you're looking after those things, and you stay true to yourself and what you know to be true. You can be happy no matter what the world is doing. No matter, your whole world could be crumbling around you, but you could truly still be in a state of happiness that can be abiding and lasting. um, Meaning that it's not something that's fleeting. People might think that you could go out and party at night and that makes you happy, but that's a fleeting feeling. It's something that comes in a moment, and you can do it at any time that you want to, but that doesn't stay with you. But there is a way for you to be happy, um, uh, happy where you can be in a state of happiness where that is prolonged, and that's abiding, which means that it stays for you. That it's you can wake up in the morning and still be happy even if the world is crumbling around you. And those are the things that I want to discuss. I want to talk more about the nature of happiness, and how you can also be truly happy within yourselves and not have to look for artificial forms of happiness externally or outside of where you are. Anyways, that's my episode, my first episode. Thank you very much, and welcome on board to the Tips from My Garage podcast. You know what? This has actually felt pretty good for me. This is going to be it. I don't know if I'm going to have, well, I'm pretty sure that the more of these that I do, the better I get at them. I think I'll start bringing on more people into the garage, and then maybe we can start having conversations. And so I think that'll be something to look forward to. But thanks very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you at the next episode.